Today I'm going to show you how to get rid of some ease hanging out in the front armhole by rotating it into a dart. Now this is something that happened in my bodice fitting class this past weekend. I was working with one of my students who was basically, I don't want to say redrafting, but we started with a vintage pattern that had some shape issues, and we had to do some adjusting to get the pattern to agree with her figure. And one of the things that happened after we did all of the blue zone adjusting, meaning we made sure that the front neckline, the back neckline, the shoulder, slope of shoulder, ball of shoulder, and prominent shoulder blades, all of those things, we made sure all of that was adjusted properly, and we were still getting a gap in the front armhole right here. This is the same kind of gap that you can get when you need more room in your bust, but in this situation, her center front was reaching her center front and she had plenty of room. So it was really clear to me that she didn't need like a full bust adjustment because everything was fitting, you know, across and nothing was pulling. We just had this extra like bubble of ease in this lower part of the front armhole. So this particular pattern we were working with didn't have any bust dart or waist dart. It was sort of a tunic, relatively loose fitting. So our two choices were, we could either rotate it to the hem to create more fullness at the hem, which she did not need, or we could rotate it to the position of the bust dart and then create a bust dart to give some shape. So that's what we did, and what I want to do is show you how to either rotate it into an existing dart or create a bust dart on a dartless front bodice piece. So for this example, I already sewed together a front bodice that has this gap, okay, and you can see here I marked it with a pen, okay, the amount of gap, and I'm going to take it off my dress form. I'm going to show you how to now transfer this to your paper pattern. Okay, so what I did was I lined up my armhole and my side seam. So I'm pressing my side seam flat here so it agrees with the side seam, and I'm also lining up the armhole, and I'm just going to use my sew tights to hold everything down so you can see, and this way I don't have to take the whole thing apart. All right, so see, this is one of the reasons why I love my Sew Tight magnetic cutting board, because I can nail things down without taking them apart. So notice here now, I've lined up my side seam and my armhole, and what I'm going to do here is I'm going to mark where that extra ease is along the armhole like that. Then I'm going to get rid of this little muslin. So you can see that's a pretty significant amount, and like I said, the first thing you want to check is to see if you need more room in your bust. So for example, if you have that gaping in your armhole and you cannot reach your center front to center front, that means you need a full bust adjustment. But if everything looks great and the armhole is just gaping out right here, then it can be the situation where the front armhole is not agreeing with the shape of your body and you need to get rid of some of that length. First thing I'm going to do is show you how to incorporate it into an existing dart. So for this example, you can see that I actually drew lines from where that gap was to the tip of the front waist dart, and then I cut the waist dart out and I shut it. So you can see what happened here is the waist dart got much larger and this closed. All right, so I'm just going to dash in here where I would mark this. So basically I'm just going to do these little dashed lines, and essentially what I would do is I would cut out along this dart leg and one of the dart legs here, and then shift the whole thing to close the dart. And what it looks like is this. Okay, so I've already done it this way to incorporate it into the waist dart. Let's see how that one looks. I sewed a new front and back. All right, so you can see that it's completely smooth there now. Okay, there's no gaping in that armhole anymore. So what we did was we transferred that extra ease down here into this larger waist dart. So that's one way to deal with it. So what I'm going to do this time is, instead of adding it to the waist dart, I'm going to go ahead and create a bust dart. Now, if you're creating a bust dart and you don't have a bust dart on the pattern, the first thing I would do is measure from the shoulder seam down to where your apex is. And if you're working with an A, B, or C cup, you want to be about a ½ inch below your apex. And if you're a D or a D plus, you can be 5/8 or 3/4 away from the apex. So I'm going to go ahead and say this is where I want to position the tip of my bust dart. All right, and then I have to just redraw the ease on the armhole. So let me just set this back up quickly here. Just lining that up. Again, I'm just you can see I'm lining up the top of the side seam and the armhole like that. So I could mark where the ease is like that. Then what I'm going to do is I'm going to draw lines from there to the new tip of my dart. Oops. Then I'm going to draw the line for the bust dart. Now it can be horizontal or it can be slightly angled up. I'm going to go with horizontal here, like that. Now what we're going to do is I am going to cut one of these guidelines and I'm going to cut the bust dart open. And then I'm just going to rotate this whole thing like this. To close the gap in the armhole. Just move this out of the way. Like that. Okay, and so you can see what we've done now is we've created a bust dart and we've gotten rid of the ease in the armhole. So I'm just going to put a piece of Scotch tape there. And then you can see we have to true this up. So a lot of times I tell you to split the difference and add a little and take away a little. In this case, we're going to fill this lower portion in to meet above the adjustment like this. Okay, so I fixed my armhole. Now I'm just going to take some paper and I'm going to fill in my dart. And I'm going to close that or secure it with tape. Okay, now to get the rest of this side seam, we're going to close the dart and then cut the side seam. And I'm just going to draw my other dart leg here. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to fold one dart leg either up or down to the other. Now, if you're working with an A, B, or C cup, you're going to take the lower dart leg and you're going to fold it up to the upper dart leg like this. Okay, and you can see we have a little bit of a discrepancy in our dart length. Okay, so if that happens, what you want to do is you're going to extend the upper dart to match like that. And then I'm going to fold this up. And then what you're going to do is you're simply going to cut out the side seam, and what that's going to do is it's going to give you the shape you need for the dart. And the reason why I added to the upper dart leg to make this little extra here is because if that's not right, you can always take it in a little bit, but I don't want to, you know, trim this to match that in case then it makes it too tight. You can always take it in a little bit, but you can't let it out. So I made the shorter dart leg, which in this case was the upper dart leg, equal to the lower dart leg. Fold it up, and then just, you know, cut your side seam to give you the shape here. Oops. All right, now if you're working with a D or D plus cup size, you'll do the same thing, except you'll fold the top leg down. That will put the dart intake face up, which is better for a fuller cup. So now I've got this new shape, and let's see how that looks. All right, so we can see now I've got the bust dart, the waist dart, a back waist dart, but you can see that we have a nice smooth shape here as well. So whether you decide to create a bust dart where there isn't one, or contribute to either an existing waist dart or bust dart, those are your options in a situation where you have that gaping. If you follow along with me and you checked out Fit Tip Tuesday last week, I shared how to get rid of a gaping back armhole that was being caused by prominent shoulder blades. And the reason why I'm bringing that up is because you always want to check and see if there's a reason why the armhole is misshaped, besides the fact that you might just have extra ease along the edge, like in this case. So if you're looking at your fit muslin, make sure you check to make sure there's nothing causing that open edge of the armhole to buckle, besides the fact that it's just too long in an area. So again, in the front, you want to make sure that you can reach comfortably across your full bust, and you don't need a full bust adjustment. If the gaping is in the back, you want to check and make sure that you don't have a prominent shoulder blade or a curve to the spine that might be causing gaping. Because remember, we're working with flat pieces of fabric that you're asking to conform around the curves of our body. So if there's something poking at the muslin, it can cause an open edge of an armhole to be misshapen. So I just thought this was a fun thing to share, because after ruling everything out, we decided to pinch it out and rotate it into creating a bust dart with my student. I thought it would be fun to share these little tidbits that are coming up in my efficient workflow for bodice fitting class, because there's always exceptions to every rule and everybody's different. So sometimes things that aren't as common pop up. So if you have some gaping in your armhole in the front and everything is fitting and you've got enough room in your bust, try rotating it either to an existing bust dart or waist dart, or create a bust or waist dart. If you have any questions or comments, please post those below and I will help you. I hope you're enjoying my Fit Tip Tuesday videos. If you do, consider liking and subscribing to my channel because it helps me grow. Thank you guys so much for watching, and have a wonderful rest of your day.